A very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for joining us this Saturday um, to talk today about the Prime Minister's forthcoming visit to Japan for the Quad Summit as well as some other engagements in Tokyo. We have the privilege here of Foreign Secretary Sir Shri Vinay Quatra to give us a sense of the visit. We also have with us here Shri Naveen Srivastav, Additional Secretary of the East Asia Division of the Ministry, as well as Shrimati Fani Rao, Joint Additional Secretary looking after the Americas Division of the Ministry. So I will open the floor with you, sir. Just one second. So, microphone.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon and namaskar, and thank you very much for coming here this afternoon for this special visit on Prime Minister's upcoming visit to Japan to participate in the Quad Summit. Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi will travel to Japan on an official visit next week on 23-24 May to participate in the Quad Leaders Summit in Tokyo at the invitation of Prime Minister of Japan, His Excellency Fumio Kishida. Apart from participating in the Quad Summit, Prime Minister would also hold bilateral meetings with the President of the US, Prime Minister of Japan, and with Prime Minister of Australia. The Prime Minister would also engage with the Japanese business community and the Indian diaspora during his stay in Tokyo. Let me first begin with the Quad Leaders Summit. As you all know, Quad cooperation is anchored in the shared values and commitment to the principles of democracy, international law, and rules-based international order, as also the vision for a free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific. Since its first summit, Quad has been working to implement a positive and constructive agenda with a strong focus on enabling peace, prosperity, and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. Our cooperation efforts have included 1. Working together on climate action. This involves creating a decarbonized green shipping network in the Indo-Pacific, making use of clean hydrogen and making it more accessible, pooling capacities to assist Indo-Pacific countries in climate monitoring and information sharing. Quad's Infrastructure Coordination Group has been deliberating on supporting sustainable and demand-driven infrastructure in the region in a manner that doesn't burden countries of the region with unsustainable debt. 3. Cooperation on critical and emerging technologies, biotechnology, diversification of semiconductor supply chain, and security of critical cyber infrastructure are other key priority areas of our cooperative measures in the Quad. 4th, continuing cooperation on COVID response and post-COVID management of economy and health infrastructure are also important elements. These include last mile delivery, health security, genomic surveillance, clinical trials, and pandemic preparedness as their important elements. Quad would also organize a special session on the sidelines of the World Health Assembly later this month on promoting vaccine confidence and fighting the infodemic, which is on 24th of May. The upcoming summit in Tokyo would therefore provide the leaders with an opportunity to take stock of the progress made thus far on Quad's initiatives and also give guidance for the future. Developments in the Indo-Pacific region and global issues of mutual interest might also come up for discussion. As I mentioned in the beginning, the Prime Minister will also have a bilateral meeting with President Biden on 24th of May. The India-US relationship, as you all know, is multifaceted, has acquired momentum, is depth, and is diversified. Our long-standing cooperation in diverse areas ranging from trade, defense, security, climate, education, energy, pretty much all aspects of human economic endeavor is on upward trajectory. There is regular exchange of visits and dialogue, and these dialogues just are not limited to the bilateral agenda, but also include issues of regional and global importance. Prime Minister's meeting with President Biden will mark continuation of these high-level dialogues and provide guidance and vision to take the relationship forward. Prime Minister will also meet the Japanese President, Excellency Kishida. Prime Minister Kishida, sorry. Japan, as you know, is among our most important partners. Prime Minister Modi has referred to India-Japan relationship as one of the most natural in the region. In the last few years, India-Japan special, strategic and global partnership has seen great momentum. This meeting between the two prime ministers will be an opportunity to carry forward the high-level engagement between the two countries, as also to advance bilateral cooperation agenda. As you are aware, Prime Minister Kishida's recent visit to India saw substantial outcomes, which included a target of Japanese yen 5 trillion, approximately $40 to $42 billion in public and private investment and financing over the 5 years, and adoption of several other key outcome documents, which included 1. An industrial competitiveness partnership roadmap, 2. Clean energy partnership, 3. Sustainable development initiative for the Northeast, and lastly, agreements on sustainable urban development, cybersecurity, etc. In Tokyo, the two prime ministers will continue their discussions on how to further deepen bilateral economic cooperation, including in trade and investment, clean energy, cooperation in the Northeast, people-to-people ties, digital partnership, and of course exchange perspective on common issues of regional and global importance. Commercial exchanges and business-to-business partnerships are a crucial pillar of India-Japan relations. Prime Minister will hold a business roundtable and interact with the leadership of Japanese industry and businesses, and also have few one-on-one business meetings during his stay in Tokyo. Prime Minister's interaction with business leaders of Japan will further propel our economic engagement between the two countries. During the visit, the Prime Minister will also interact with the Indian community, which is an important anchor of our ties with Japan. You would be aware that elections are being held in Australia today. We understand that the next Australian Prime Minister is likely to attend the Quad Summit. It is expected that the Prime Minister will meet the new Australian leader in Tokyo. In their interaction, the two leaders would review the India-Australia comprehensive strategic partnership and exchange views on regional and global developments of mutual interest. The last bilateral meeting between the two prime ministers was held virtually in March this year, which was, as you all recall, followed by the signing of India-Australia Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement on 2nd of April 2022. I think I'll stop here and we'll take a few questions on Prime Minister's upcoming visit to
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Before I begin, ground rules again. One question, please. Please stick to the topic, which is the Prime Minister's visit to Japan, and also introduce yourself and the organizations. So I see 3-4 names. Should I start? Okay. Today I saw you first, please, ma'am. Then I'll come to you. Yeah, go ahead. There.
This is Nivedita from Swarajya. Will India be accepting an invite to the India-Pacific Economic Forum, considering that it is also been negotiating a trade deal with the US? And how comfortable would be India with a change in leadership in Australia, considering the momentum which was gained in the CEPA?
That is the second question. Okay. No. Akhilesh, please.
So Sir, I'm Akhilesh Suman from Sansad TV.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, Sri Lanka is an important country in Indo-Pacific, and when Quad is meeting, Indo-Pacific is a really center point of all the meetings of Quad. So, are you going to talk about the situation in Sri Lanka and whether it will be possible that Quad members may assist Sri Lanka to come out of the crisis that it is going on?
I was waiting to say no, but you managed to bring it to a okay, okay, yes. To not allow that question on Sri Lanka, but he managed to bring it to something. Okay, Yeshi, please.
Yeah, hi, this is Yeshi Seli from the New Indian Express. Is Renkoji likely to be a stopover for the PM this time? Renkoji.
Renkoji, okay, sorry, you had raised your and then I'll come. We'll have another round.
This is Chandrakala from ETV Bharat, so this side.
Sir, Chandrakala.
Yeah. My question is, we have seen in a recent visit by Prime Minister Modi to Europe, he has maintained India's stance on Ukraine. So with US present in Tokyo, what can we expect when it comes to India's stand on Ukraine? Will India be able to stand its ground in Tokyo as well?
I think, look, since Ukraine is a pretty topical issue, why don't we, anybody else anything Ukraine related? So we can take it this round instead of having to come back to it. You have something Ukraine related? Okay, ma'am. No, one second. Okay.
Seema Guha from Outlook magazine. I just wanted to find out whether there will be much pressure on India on the ban on wheat exports. And what would be India's stand there?
So we'll take this round and then come next round. Siddhant? Yeah, hold on. Microphone's coming to you. Microphone's coming to him? Yeah.
So Siddhant from Beyond, does Quad has any security dimension? Is Quad looking at any security dimension at a time when we know that there is increased Chinese aggressiveness and in the backdrop of what has happened in Ukraine as well?
Okay, thank you. So.
There's a set of questions on various things, topics perhaps not necessarily connected to each other. I think let me just come to the first question, I think, which was asked by Ms. Nivedita there on with regard to Australian presence, SIPA, the comfort, etc. I think I'm sure you all are quite conscious and aware of it, but let me state it anyway upfront that insofar as India-Australia strategic partnership is concerned, there is a pretty much complete bipartisan support in Australia for India-Australia relation. You yourself referred to the India-Australia free trade agreement, which was concluded between the two countries during the virtual summit in March this year. I think the discussions between the two leaders in Tokyo, between the Australian leader and the Indian Prime Minister, when they take place, we are quite confident that they would be forward-leaning in terms of not just taking the stock of what can be, what the relationship have progressed, but also how to build on it further and expand the dimensions of various cooperative efforts that India and Australia do. I don't see anything other than a positive, constructive and a forward-leaning agenda of discussion and cooperation insofar as India and Australia are concerned. I think with regard to the Indo-Pacific economic framework, I think that was the second element of the question. I think this is something which is under discussions, and I think the discussions and the conversations are still going on. We will let you know how this unfolds going forward. But we do all realize that insofar as the Indo-Pacific region is concerned, the economic segment of it is a very important segment both in terms of harnessing the opportunities of economic partnership that are available in the region, whether they are in various dimensions of economic areas or they are related to capacity building. And I think one of the focuses of Prime Minister's conversations during the Quad Summit will be on the Indo-Pacific, which is essentially one of the main areas of Quad's focus, and also within that space the economic dimension of the cooperation. I think the on India Ukraine there was, I think, only one question which came up. The related question, I don't think it's related to Ukraine because wheat is a different aspect. I think on Ukraine our position is amply clear, has been reiterated many times. But just in case there is any doubt in it or hasn't gone through clearly, let me very clearly say, right from the time that the hostilities got initiated in February, we have always spoken about, asked for immediate and early cessation of hostilities, and we have also said that insofar as the resolution of the developing situation in Ukraine is concerned, the path of diplomacy and dialogue is the best path for us to move forward. I think there was a question on the last question on Quad, I think.
Yes.
Sorry, I forgot that. What was that?
Security dimension.
Security dimension. I think it's important that we see and understand the Quad and its functioning in a proper context. And there, I think what we need to keep in mind is that Quad is a group of countries that shares core values of democracy, pluralism, and market economy. And Quad's cooperation is shaped principally by the goals of promoting peace, stability, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific. And this perspective, you would find, is anchored in our shared commitment to a rule-based order and a free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific. Now, if you look at the cooperative partnership among the countries of the Quad and then through Quad within the Indo-Pacific region, you will find that this partnership seeks to structure essentially a constructive agenda. Broad elements thus far are very clear. I'm sure these elements will build on going forward. And these elements include, for example, fight against COVID pandemic, its mitigation, efforts, how do we partner with countries in the region in post-COVID recovery, in building the health security infrastructure going forward. 2, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. 3, working together to respond to the need of climate action. Some of it I mentioned in my opening remarks also. The need to build resilient supply chains in the Indo-Pacific, for example. Partnering on infrastructure cooperation that avoids burdening the countries with unsustainable debt. Again, this is something which I mentioned in my opening remarks. So I think if you look at the principles and the values from which the space from which Quad comes, if you look at the derivative activities emanating out of those principles, if you converge the two, you will find it's a very constructive and positive agenda. And I think that is actually the correct prism or the perspective to look at the Quad. There was a question relating to Sri Lanka and the Indo-Pacific, which as the spokesperson said, you creatively brought in. I would say that when countries of the Quad meet, as I mentioned at the beginning, one of the primary focuses of Quad is the Indo-Pacific region. And naturally, when the leaders sit together, they would talk about developments in the Indo-Pacific region. They would talk about challenges in the Indo-Pacific region. They will talk about areas of concern which might be there. They would also focus on the opportunities that the Quad countries and Quad countries in partnership with other countries of the Indo-Pacific need to work on. And issues of regional and global development would definitely be part of the conversation. I would not like to single out one country or another in that respect. I think the wheat, I really don't see how wheat question fits in here, but still, I think the relevant ministry which deals with the wheat product would perhaps be able to answer your question in a greater detail. But we have been extremely clear that the principle and the needs of food security in India are paramount for us. Yet at the same time, we have also been very careful and calibrated in ensuring that the needs of the vulnerable economies, the economies that are vulnerable to the risks of the food security, wherever possible, are met. We also would need to respond also to the, to how should I say, a large segment of speculative global aspects which go into the entire trade of the food commodities. So I think our position on wheat in that sense, in terms of the externalities of a particular commodity that you look at, I think are very clear. They flow from the principles of food security, but they are also acutely conscious that whenever the needs of the other vulnerable countries are concerned, to the extent possible and to the best of our ability, we would definitely try and meet them to that extent. I don't know if I missed out any question. Well, insofar as where all Prime Minister is traveling, I've already mentioned to you where all he's traveling. Thank you.
I'll take a few more rounds questions. I think somebody last time had raised their hand. Okay, if not, we'll start with you. One second, I saw you. Yeah, ma'am, then you.
नमस्कार सर, मैं कविता जोशी हूँ हरिभूमि न्यूज़पेपर से। सर मैं आप हरिभूमि न्यूज़पेपर से कविता जोशी हूँ। सर मैं ये आपसे पूछना चाहती हूँ कि ये जो क्वाड लीडर्स का जो मीटिंग होगा उस पर, क्योंकि भारत एक इम्पॉर्टेंट सदस्य है क्वाड का, तो भारत ने अभी तक रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर में रशिया का ना तो अभी तक क्रिटिसिज्म किया है, ना ही सैंक्शंस के ऊपर बात की है।
अभी मैंने
लेकिन बाकी जो इसके तीनों देश हैं उन्होंने क्रिटिसाइज भी किया, सैंक्शंस के ऊपर भी बात की। तो हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर की जो क्वाड में बात होगी या फिर जो प्रेसिडेंट बाइडन के साथ उनके बायलैटरल होंगे, तो इस इशू को भी मतलब सामने रखा जाएगा, इस पे भी कोई चर्चा होगी इस पे प्राइम मिनिस्टर की तरफ से? अभी
तो हमने कहा कि यूक्रेन के क्वेश्चन एक साथ ले लेंगे, पर आपने फिर वही दोहराया। एनीवे सर, नहीं वीट नहीं, हाँ
देखिए मैं आपसे एक मुख्य चीज़ जो स्पोक्स पर्सन ने प्रारंभ में कही थी वो कह देना चाहता हूँ। इस ब्रीफिंग में हम मुख्यतः प्रधानमंत्री जी की क्वाड समिट की यात्रा पे केंद्रित हैं। आपके जो प्रश्न है उस पर क्या उत्तर होगा वो अलग बात है, लेकिन ये मुख्य चीज़ मैं स्पष्ट रूप से प्रारंभ में बोल दूँ तो शायद उचित रहेगा। बट आपका प्रश्न स्वागत है।
Foreign Secretary, I am Ranjit Kumar. How India views the idea of expansion of Quad that includes countries like South Korea, Indonesia, other countries?
Okay. This side we have three more. One second. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Sahil from ANI. Sir, will Quad vaccine initiative be the talking point in this meeting? And one more question is there, if you allow. It is about one political representative said out in UK that the Indian Foreign Service has completely changed and won't listen to it.
No, hold on. By no stretch of imagination can you bring that to the Prime Minister's visit. So that is not going to happen. Please, you Takeshi. I'll come to you. Give me a second.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Takashi from Japanese newspaper. You mentioned Prime Minister Modi is going to meet the business community in Japan. So is there any specific sector or industry India wants to strengthen the relationship? Thank you.
No, hold on. Microphone. No, mic is off.
Hi.
Foreign Secretary Smita Sharma, contributing editor, India Ahead. Just a related question to the Quad vaccine initiative, because to quote Jake Sullivan, the US National Security Advisor, he said that the Quad is working assiduously to get Indian regulatory approvals to get the Quad vaccine initiative off the ground. Can you help us understand exactly what are the sticking points? Is there a timeline that you're working towards to resolve the issue? And what is the scheduled timing for the Quad meeting, if you could help with that?
There was one more hand, somebody here. We'll take the last one. Okay. Look, we have Foreign Secretary has to go, so quickly.
फॉरेन सेक्रेटरी मैं ब्रह्म प्रकाश दुबे हूँ जी न्यूज़ से। मेरा सवाल ये है कि जो क्वाड समिट में जो जिन मसलों पर चर्चा होगी उसमें क्या ये भी होगा, जिस तरह से चीन का एग्रेशन देखने को मिल रहा है भारत के बॉर्डर पर, खासतौर से अभी चर्चा हो रही है, दूसरा ब्रिज भी बना रहा है पेंगोंग लेक पर, तो इस तरह के मुद्दे चीन से जुड़े हुए जो चीन का एटीट्यूड देखने को मिल रहा है उस पर ही बातचीत होगी इसमें?
Foreign Secretary Raj Chegappa from India Today. Just to follow up on Smita's question, in terms of she talked about COVID and the vaccine initiative. I wanted to know on the other two C's, which is critical technologies and climate change, what concrete action has happened apart from various discussions? Is there any groups being formed this time? Is there going to be progress on these things, whether it's semiconductors, on other issues? What do we expect from this?
Thank you. So, sorry, I saw her hand, if you permit, sir. I saw Huma's hand, but I forgot. But that's been a lot. I mean, we have to close. Quickly, Huma.
During the bilateral with the...
Close up.
During the I'm Huma Siddiqui from the Financial Express. During the bilateral with the Japanese Prime Minister, would defense and security be an issue of top discussion? And when is the 2+2 between the two countries expected?
Asked me yesterday. I said no dates for that.
Okay, let me just summarize the questions and ensure that nothing one is missed. One, Ukraine, 2, Quad expansion, 3, Quad vaccine initiative, 4th, as spokesperson said, not relevant. Takashi-san, I think your question on the domains of economic cooperation, follow up on the vaccine and the issue relating to China and the critical technologies and the climate action. I think कविता जी, जो आपका प्रश्न यूक्रेन से संबंधित था, जैसे कि मैंने आपसे पिछले प्रश्न के उत्तर में भी कहा कि यूक्रेन को लेके जो भारत की नीति है, जो सैद्धांतिक रीति है, जो हमारे हितों और सिद्धांतों पर आधारित नीति है, उस नीति का पूरे विश्व में और इसमें जो हमारे मुख्य पार्टनर हैं उनके द्वारा भी पूरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, पूरी एप्रिसिएशन है। मैं उस हिंदी में जो मैंने अंग्रेज़ी में कहा उसका रूपांतर करने का प्रयास करता हूँ, थोड़ा अनुचित रहे तो मैं क्षमा चाहूँगा आपसे। उसमें 3 चीज़ें हमने मुख्य रूप से कही हैं। एक ये शीघ्र अतिशीघ्र युद्ध विराम, और ये जब से स्थिति डेवलप होनी शुरू हुई है तब से कहा है। दूसरा, डिप्लोमेसी और डायलॉग के माध्यम से समस्या का सुलझाव। और जैसे कि मैंने कहा, इस नीति की दूसरे देशों द्वारा एप्रिसिएशन भी है, इसके प्रति पूरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग भी है। देखिए, जहाँ आई थिंक द सेकंड क्वेश्चन वाज रिलेटिंग टू द क्वाड एक्सपेंशन, आई थिंक इट वाज आस्क्ड to our understanding, right now, I don't think there are any conversations going on further expansion of Quad. Quad is between the 4 countries. Quad vaccine initiative, related aspects of the Quad vaccine initiative. I think if you look at how the initiative started and the subsequent dimensions of it. when you encounter and when you respond to pandemic, there are various elements of response to the pandemic, in this case the COVID-19 pandemic, of which vaccine is an important element. But there are other important elements which, as the COVID has evolved, have continued to emerge and also become areas of cooperation between not just the Quad countries, but also the discussions and as a part of substantive cooperation with other countries. And as I mentioned to you right in the beginning, our cooperation on COVID response is a continuing feature. It's also an evolving feature. It includes not just response to as the COVID situation develops across the Indo-Pacific, it also includes how do we now begin to address the post-COVID-19 aspects. Economic recovery is one aspect. The aspects relating to health infrastructure, health security, pandemic preparedness, all these are important elements as you transition into a different phase of COVID-19 response. And I think all those elements are important segments of conversation between the Quad leaders. And as I mentioned right in the beginning, but I'll just repeat it, that in that the last mile delivery, health security, genomic surveillance, clinical trials, essentially part of COVID pandemic preparedness are important elements in this. And I think this is something which will form an important basis of conversations during the summit also. On the on your question, Mr. Takashi, on the economic areas of cooperation, as you know very well that the economic pillar, and within the economic pillar, the commercial pillar, and within the commercial pillar, the business-to-business partnerships, are very a critical segment of our relationship. It frankly includes trade, which is crucial, technology, and investment partnerships. Within the broad rubric of trade, investment, and technology, there is a whole set of specific areas in which this partnership is to be taken forward. I spoke about industrial competitive partnership that we had agreed during the recent visit of Excellency the Prime Minister of Japan. The digital partnership. How do the complementarities of the two economies in the field of manufacturing translate into business-to-business partnerships? That's the third area. And there are a whole host of other areas in our economic engagement which have always been focus of our engagement, and they would also be in focus in Prime Minister's meeting with the Japanese business leader. It is not a uni-sectoral focus, it's a multi-sectoral attention that Prime Minister's interaction with the business leaders would entail. On the other question from you, Raj, with regard to the critical technologies, critical and emerging technologies. See, in some form or another, critical and emerging technologies have always been an area of conversation between not just India and the US, but also between India and the other relevant countries which fit this bracket. The critical and emerging technologies have assumed a sharper focus in terms of their discussions in the Quad. The discussions are both conceptual but also specific, depending upon what each country brings to the table. And in so far as going forward is concerned, we do expect to see some very tangible and material progress on the ground. I think climate action is a space on which all countries have done a considerable amount, and I think they will continue to do going forward. I think
defense and security and 2+2.
Yeah. So the 2+2, I think we are in discussions with our Japanese counterparts, and I think once the timelines for that are finalized, we'll definitely let you know. I think defense and security, again, it's a very important element of our relationship with Japan. It has several segments to it which go into it. There are bilateral exercises that take place between the two countries. There are exchanges at the level of defense teams that take place between the two countries. You yourself mentioned about 2+2. One meeting has taken place. Second one is in progress. You are aware that in 2020, the two countries had signed an agreement on the reciprocal provision of supply and services between the armed forces of the two countries. And most recently, I think when the Milan 22 iteration of the exercise was done, a lot of these understandings and the arrangements that the two countries had arrived at were put into practice. So it's an important segment of our cooperation. Another side of it, which is equally important, from the perspective of both the countries, is to look at co-design, co-development, and co-manufacturing wherever possible of different defense systems that go into it. This would naturally include technologies, but also include specific design aspects to it. I think यहाँ पर एक चीन से संबंधित आपका प्रश्न था चीन से संबंधित. देखिए, जैसे कि मैंने शुरू में भी कहा, इंडो पैसिफिक क्षेत्र में, इंडो पैसिफिक क्षेत्रीय संदर्भ में चुनौतियां भी हैं, अवसर भी हैं. और जब क्वाड के नेता आपस में बात करते हैं, या भारत किसी भी और इंडो पैसिफिक क्षेत्र से बात करता है, या जब भी इंडो पैसिफिक क्षेत्र के संदर्भ में वार्ता होती है, उसमें चुनौतियों और अवसर दोनों पे ही केंद्रित किया जाता है. द्विपक्षीय संबंध अलग की बातें हैं, बट ये इस समय इंडो पैसिफिक केंद्रित चीज़ों में जो चुनौतियां, अवसर हैं, उस पे यथोचित यथासंभव तरीके से क्वाड के नेता जो वार्ता एजेंडा में आएगी वो अवश्य करें. धन्यवाद.
Thank you very much, sir, for detailed responses. Thanks also to Additional Secretaries Naveen Srivastav and Vani Rao. Thank you all for joining us today afternoon. Please stay tuned for our updates as the visit progresses.
Thank you. Thank you very much.